You're listening to Table Talks for Life, a Y4Life podcast that prepares youth to be gospel-motivated voices for life. Be sure to stick around after today's live recording to find out how you can be engaged in upholding life too. All right, welcome to today's Table Talks for Life podcast. We are talking about sidewalk counseling this morning or afternoon, whenever you are listening to our podcast. In particular, what to expect when women don't want to be expecting. And I have three guests with me today. My name is Michelle, and I'm the director of Y4Life. But I'll let my guests introduce themselves. Go for it.
Hi, I'm Pam Nielsen. I'm a Lutheran deaconess and presently serving at Coalition Life, a nonprofit pro-life group in St. Louis, and we are focused on sidewalk counseling, and we have a pregnancy resource center. And great to be here today.
Thanks for joining us.
I'm Bonnie. I am the Media Resource Assistant at Y4Life.
And I am Rachelle Highley, also a Lutheran deaconess, currently serving at Coalition Life. And I've been with Coalition for the last 7 years, and for the bulk of that time within our Pregnancy Resource Center that Pam mentioned, but currently serving as Chief of Staff.
All right, so we have a few people here maybe who have been involved in sidewalk counseling, at least two though. So I want to start off with kind of a basic description or definition of what sidewalk counseling is. What is it actually, what are we talking about when we mention the term sidewalk counseling?
So sidewalk counseling is boots on the ground activism for a pro-life cause outside of an abortion facility. And different groups and organizations take sidewalk counseling approaches in different ways. But for Coalition Life, sidewalk counseling looks like reaching out and engaging with hope and love to every single person who enters or leaves the abortion facility, just asking them some questions about what's going on in their life, and then offering them resources to get the services that they need somewhere else for free and a life-affirming option place. So, another pregnancy resource center where they can get those things like pregnancy testing or ultrasounds or even STI screening, or, options counseling about what to do with this pregnancy that was unplanned. And that sidewalk counseling is all about making those connections and helping them to leave the abortion facility that they're at and go elsewhere.
So you mentioned quite a few things, not just addressing the unexpected pregnancy, right, or the surprise pregnancy, but also other needs that a woman might have. How many opportunities do you have in a typical day to talk to women? Do most women stop and talk? Do most women drive by? What does that look like?
It depends on your location. So there are 600 to 700 abortion facilities across our country, and each one of them has varying degrees of traffic. At some of the more busy spots, like Fairview Heights, Illinois, which is one of the hubs in our area where Coalition Life serves, that's a very busy facility, and they see anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 people a week at that facility. And so we engage and interact with every single one of those. Some other facilities might see a few hundred each week, and we're there every day that they're open, and we want to be there to be that last chance of hope for every single person that goes in. We have I could look up the statistics here and tell you in just a minute. I don't have them right in front of me. But as far as, the stop rates and, how many actually stop and talk to us, we have a decent amount that do stop and talk to us, and they'll even take literature, some of the information that we have to give them. They'll ask questions. But of course, our ultimate goal is that they would leave, that they would turn around is what we call it. So when we talk about sidewalk counseling success, you'll often hear the term turnarounds. And that's, of course, those women that do turn around. They physically leave and go somewhere else instead. And that's the ultimate goal. And we see that happen at a rate of about 1%.
Okay.
So in our 11 years at Coalition Life, we have just under 4,000 turnarounds, women that have left.
Yeah. What a beautiful way that you have blessed those lives, right? Those mothers and babies and fathers, hopefully entire families. by actually giving them other options. Now, I know, Pam, you've been there and you've seen, what this looks like, right? So typically, is there one person there? Are there multiple people? What does this setup look like when there's a sidewalk counselor?
Yeah, that varies from day to day, but our practice is to always have two people. And that's actually a requirement we have for our staff. So there are two people minimum, and they're in a vest, standing where they legally can stand in front of the abortion facility. And sometimes maybe there's a third or fourth person. We often are training people, so that adds some people to the sidewalk. And then there are the prayer warriors, people in churches and organizations who they're not wanting to do the counseling, but they come out to the sidewalk and there's a place for them to stand, and they will spend hours praying, singing hymns or liturgy or whatever, from various faith groups. So sometimes it's pretty busy out there on the sidewalk. And sometimes it's, I think, pretty lonely for two people just to be out there for hours at a time in the hot sun or the freezing cold or the pouring rain. They're there. If the abortion facility is open, the sidewalk counselors are there to greet and try to turn around those who are headed in.
Yeah, I love the fact that you send people in twos, right? Because that allays maybe some fear, but also that provides some protection, right? A witness to what's happening, but also encouragement. We know that we weren't not only designed to live alone, but that we need each other, especially when we're going through difficult times. And I hope that sometime during our discussion today, we can kind of talk about some of the heaviness that sidewalk counselors hold, and how we can uplift them, whether through prayer or other ways. So I definitely want to get to that. But before we get to that, maybe we could talk about a little bit what fears, what would cause a woman to go to an abortion clinic when she finds out that she's pregnant. What are, in your experience, or, and maybe Bonnie, you can address this too from a college perspective, what sort of fears might a woman be facing that would cause her to want to go to an abortion clinic? We certainly, society occasionally will see snippets of people who are very flippant about heading to abortion clinic, but we know that that's not for the most part true of women, right? That this is a difficult situation and a difficult decision that a woman will make. Most of them are not flippant in your face. So what do you guys think? What are some things that would cause a woman to make that decision?
Yeah, well, I think it could be a variety of things. I'm sure it is a variety of things. And I'm sure so I have never sidewalk counseled myself. I'm hoping to actually with Coalition Life at some point this summer. But I'm sure that you who have sidewalk counseled would know that when you do talk to these women, it isn't a flippant thing, and none of them are walking in smiling and confident and excited about the situation ahead of them. So I think ultimately it's just a feeling of having nowhere else to turn for a variety of reasons. So maybe they just feel like they can't raise the child on their own, financial worries for sure, especially kind of in my age group or younger, like sort of young teen, mid-teen, even college aged, very sort of financially strapped, and they weren't planning to have a child. Their life plans, so maybe they were really career minded or just weren't expecting to have a child. It really changes your whole life. And what your day-to-day life looks like, and not wanting to let go of that or not seeing how they can make that work financially. Maybe they are in an abusive relationship and they don't want to bring their child into that, or they feel like that would tie them more to the abuser, or maybe they're being pressured by their partner, their parents, or maybe they don't want their family to know. Maybe that's you can definitely see how in like Christian circles, that could be a really shameful experience to have to admit that you're pregnant, whether that be scared to tell your parents, for your, school, church, community to know that. It's a very obvious, you can't really hide that situation. And so, and then also, I think when they're actually there at the clinic, and I'm sure, again, Rachel and Pam, you can speak probably more to this, but just the actual fears of like, what's it going to be like when I walk in these doors? What does it mean to go in and get an abortion? People don't really know what they're getting themselves into, I think, a lot of times, because it is a really gruesome and sad procedure. And so, or, if it's a surgical abortion or if it's a medication abortion, then there's all sorts of side effects and things that are going on with your body that they might not know about in detail. And so wondering if they're going to be okay, if they should really go through with it. And like, will I be in pain? Just what is actually going to happen when I go in and say I'm here for my appointment?
Yeah, I think, Bonnie, what you were mentioning is a lot of great things. I mean, not great things to experience, but great ways to answer this question is truthful things that real women are experiencing in these unplanned pregnancies. Throughout my years in the Pregnancy Resource Center, we had the privilege to work with these women through these circumstances, help to let them kind of unburden what's all on their mind and all of these fears and obstacles that are leading them to the abortion facility in the first place, and then work with them through them. And from that experience, I can tell you that almost all of them are experiencing financial difficulty to differing degrees. Some, so financially strapped that they're facing homelessness for themselves and any children that they already are caring for. And, others to a less extreme, but to, facing the reality that if they bring another child into their household, they're going to have to make sacrifices or, changes from what they're used to. And so there's definitely varying levels of financial strain, but for the majority of women seeking abortion, the financial strain is pretty significant. I saw recent studies that said as many as 70% of those seeking abortion are pressured or influenced by outside forces to do so. And that's certainly something we see in the Pregnancy Center and in Sidewalk counseling as well, that these women, while they are experiencing all of these fears and they think abortion might be the solution, there's still that doubt in their mind because nobody really truly wants to kill their child. Nobody truly wants to go through an abortion experience, but the voices around them can be loud. Those voices that tell them you're not strong enough, you're not smart enough, you're not capable enough, you don't have enough money, your house isn't big enough, your job isn't secure enough. All of these things that make women feel unworthy of being a parent. And Bonnie, you mentioned things like domestic violence, which is certainly a hurdle we see, or just the father of the child being absent. Any kind of less than ideal relationship with the father of the child then spurs these abortion thoughts in the mind of the mother, because for the same things, is this going to tie me to that person even more? Am I going to expose this child to a bad person? Or maybe it was just a one night stand and it something that they don't even have a relationship with this person. Or I wish it wasn't as common, but sometimes they don't even know who the father is, and that's another stressor there that leads them to want to have an abortion.
Right.
Yeah. There's also there are the women we see that are brought to the abortion facility, and we often don't know what they're feeling inside, but maybe their boyfriend, husband, parent is determined that this is the best thing, and they're driving them in. And often they're the ones in the driver's seat, and the woman maybe is next to them or in the back seat. And those are situations too. Maybe they would like to keep their baby. Maybe they haven't even had a chance to think about it. They were just told this is what's best. This is what has to happen. There are also women we know who have been trafficked or they're in prostitution and are brought to take care of the problem so they can get back to work. And so there's a real ugliness there that we see, a real harsh realities. I've described it to people that on the sidewalk, we're on the edge of good and evil, where those things intersect. Very much feel that when you meet some of these people in their determination. Yeah, almost there are people that come through that are even, I could say, giddy about, laughing off our efforts to help them, determined to drive in and bold, and to me, that's just pure evil that has gotten a hold of them.
Sure. Yeah, that you're right. There's got to be at some point a rejection of the good, right? You have to convince yourself that this thing that is not good is good, right? So there's some mental gymnastics you have to do, and for some, again, I think for some it is a mourning even as they walk in, right?
Absolutely.
Something they don't want to do, but feel forced into doing. And then, you would have those that are pushing back on the truth very firmly. So, just in our discussion, just in the listen, I can think of, with my 21 years of teaching experiences that I had, former students that struggled with this decision. The issue is multifaceted, right? There's not usually just one thing that led to the decision to come to the abortion clinic. Even if someone is bringing them, even if someone is being human trafficked, we have multiple life issues that are leading up to this life issue, right? Whether it is a financial strain, an inability to find a job, a lack of partnership, a lack of a spouse, there's lots of things feeding into this decision. So then how does a sidewalk counselor address those? How does he or she allay the fears that an individual might be facing, that a woman might be facing? What are your thoughts on that?
So before I answer that one in depth, this is a related point, so I'll make the connection here. But I'll say a pro-life industry pro tip for you guys. We work really hard to make sure that we structure the language we use when we talk about the pro-life issue in a way that supports and uplifts our pro-life values. And one of the ways we do that is we make sure that we always refer to the Planned Parenthoods or other places as abortion facilities versus clinics. And the reason for that is because so many of the women coming in, and just our culture in general, is bought into this lie that abortion is essential medical care. And the word clinic just enforces that idea that you're going there to receive medical care. This is needed. This is important. This is for your health. And in the pro-life, we know that that's not true, that that's blatantly false, that abortion is anything but health care. It's actually taking the life of a perfectly healthy and innocent person and harming another healthy and innocent person in the process. And so we kind of squash that idea just in our own ways that we talk about it. And so that kind of comes through too when we speak with women, and we want them to understand that as well. But the goal of a sidewalk counselor is not necessarily to convince the woman there in that moment that abortion is wrong, because the exposure to this woman, this conversation that you're going to have there is really limited. I mean, think about the context. You're sitting on the public right of way outside of a private abortion facility property, and they're stopping in the driveway to speak with a sidewalk counselor, which is incredible that they stop in the first place. But there might be cars coming out. There might be other cars trying to come in behind them. The facility often has escorts there, waving cars in, trying to get them to stop speaking with a sidewalk counselor. And so sidewalk counselors have really fine-tuned our methodology and the words we use and chosen them extremely carefully, because we only have so very few precious seconds to say them. And what we have found at Coalition Life in our 11 years of beta testing and trying new strategies and testing it all out is that the most effective thing for us is to simply meet them where they're at and provide the need that they have. So any women going into an abortion facility is coming in there to meet some sort of need, perceived or otherwise. They're either coming in there for some kind of testing, pregnancy testing, STI screening, those kinds of things, or they're going in for an abortion procedure. Or I suppose they could be going in to learn about abortion. So they might not be intending on getting that abortion today, but they want information regarding abortion. What we know is that if they go in there for information regarding abortion, they're most likely going to leave with the pills in hand, because that's the way that the abortion facilities operate. They don't want to give you time to think about it. They want to, rush that decision, make it now. You need to do this sooner than later. And that information for an exploratory purpose soon turns into coercion into a procedure that they maybe weren't even sure they wanted in the first place. So sidewalk counselors, our main goal is to get them never even to walk through the threshold. We want them to just leave and go elsewhere. And the best way to do that is to meet the need that they have. As I mentioned before, most of these women are coming in with pretty substantial financial burdens. And being able to offer them the service that they're seeking for free is huge, which is why pregnancy resource centers are just gold in the pro-life world, in meeting the needs of our fellow human beings and our neighbors, because these women need these services, and to be able to get them for free instead of paying $150 for a pregnancy test in an abortion facility, they can go right across the street to a pregnancy center's mobile medical unit, or just down the street to their actual office and get that pregnancy test for free. But they're not only getting it for free, they're also getting that coupled with pro-life counsel and honest truth about what their choices are. Instead of being in an abortion facility where your choices are presented, well, parenting, that's not really an option for you because you're too young, you're too poor, you're too this, you're too that. So really, you could do adoption or you could do abortion, but adoption's really no fun anyway. And that's probably not a good choice for you. It's really hard to do. So abortion's just going to be the easiest option. I mean, that's literally what the counseling looks like inside of an abortion facility. And inside of a pregnancy resource center, they're getting honest information. They are learning about what an abortion truly is. And Bonnie, you spoke to this. They don't know, what is my body going to experience? What's happening inside of my womb with this child that's growing? What are the facts of what an abortion actually does? So many people are so uneducated on what the abortion procedure actually is and what happens.
Or the risks, the health risks to the woman. Mm-hmm. And so often in the pro-life movement, we're accused of just caring about these babies. But in fact, we care about these women. And we know they're not being told straight up when they go into Planned Parenthood what the risks are to their health with either the medical or the procedural abortions. And we have studies. There is evidence out there of those risks. So we're not just making it up. We can back it up, and we can tell them that, and they're not going to hear it in the abortion facility. So they're going to get a whole lot of loving care and truth. And that whole network, it's not just the PRCs, is it, Rachel? The pregnancy care centers, it's everybody that supports them. It's the maternity homes who say, we'll take her in as she grows that baby inside her. It's the people who offer job training or help them get jobs, or employers who will take the risk of somebody who to them might be high risk in terms of a new employee. There's a vast network of people who are pro-life, who are actively doing things. So when we stand there on the sidewalk, the two people, and there's only one talking to them, behind them is a great cloud of witnesses, a great network of loving care ready for them. Everything from, like, one time I was on the sidewalk and a couple came up from Texas, and so they've driven a long way, and they turned around and we offered them a place, a hotel room. We knew, they had some needs. Sometimes it's a meal. Sometimes, I don't know all the things that we even do. I've only done this a little bit, but it's amazing to me how faithful people are so committed that really there's no need that can't be met. And our sidewalk counselors have that in their pocket, standing behind them, and that's helps make them successful, I think, in talking to these women.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's actually I would love to learn more about that, or to know more and have our listeners know more about those things. Like what can a sidewalk counselor offer as she offers hope, as he offers hope for the individual experiencing an unexpected or unplanned pregnancy, what sort of things can a sidewalk counselor say, or engage in?
So this to some degree depends on the organization with your sidewalk counseling and the network of your community. So like Pam said, it's all about that great cloud of witnesses, the body of Christ coming together, that we're all filling our different roles within the pro-life movement to meet the needs of those who are in crisis. And depending on what's around and available in your region or in your area, you can offer the moon. Like anything is possible. Like there's nothing that's outside of the realm of possibility. And Pam just mentioned a few of those things, but if you've got the backing of people in your community that are willing to actually put their money where their mouth is, then you can offer anything. You can offer hotel stays. You can offer maternity homes. You can offer, there are other organizations that do more than just maternity homes, but actually place women in houses and work with them and help them to get their jobs and to maintain those jobs and get their education and all of these things. And sidewalk counselors serve as that conduit to getting them connected to those places. So the way it works for us within our organization of Coalition Life is our sidewalk counselors, first and foremost, their goal is to get them set up with a pregnancy center. And we operate our own pregnancy center in Missouri, but in some of the other areas where we serve throughout Illinois, we don't have our own pregnancy center, and we partner with those around us. Even in the St. Louis region, we still partner with other pregnancy centers because it's not just about one group or one organization, but it's, like I said, the whole body of Christ and even the local churches. And when you know what the resources are available, then it's just about connecting those women to the right place for their needs. So sidewalk counselors, they want to just get them over to the pregnancy center, knowing and trusting that the pregnancy center is aware of the full range of services that they could get in the area. And our sidewalk counselors know enough about that to assure them that they're going to get what they need. And they know enough to say, yes, and you need housing for tonight, we can take care of that. With the overturning of Roe versus Wade and the increased prevalence of people traveling for abortion now, we're seeing a lot of women that make it to the abortion facility with already substantial amounts of money invested in the procedure. That makes them then feel more like they are stuck with it. Well, I've come this far, I've spent this money, I have to go through with it, or else it's just wasted time and wasted money. One of the things that Coalition Life has done is that we'll reimburse them for that. Okay, if that's your concern, if you're worried about losing your travel money or losing the down payment, the deposit you made on your abortion procedure, but you want to choose life, you go choose life and we'll reimburse you that cost. We'll take whatever you spent on travel and we'll put that towards your rent for the month, or towards your utility bills. And, we'll recoup that cost for them so that they are not being further penalized for their fear and their, questioning. We want them to be able to make that choice and choose life.
And we help them if they are from out of state, which increasingly we're seeing because Illinois, what is it, like 13 states south and around Illinois do not allow abortion. So we see cars from Texas, Alabama, Tennessee. And so our local pregnancy resource centers aren't going to be the best ones to help them. We got to find who can help them in their community. So this sort of networking and knowing, and there's lots of pro-life groups that where you can get these networks, you can find this help, and we're tapped into that. And that's really important that we can lock them in. When you get home to Austin or San Antonio, here's who to call. And we let them know that this couple is coming or this woman is likely to show up. That's just so important. And when you talk about how to support this work, not everybody has to be on the sidewalk. Wouldn't be practical. Not everybody's suited to that, right? Even on the sidewalk, like I think I've actually talked to the person in the car once or twice. I don't go to the sidewalk often. My work is other things, but there's people who keep records on the sidewalk, so we know what we're seeing, right? So you can do that, but you can help a pregnancy resource center. They need things to give to these women. If they keep their babies, they're going to need lots of diapers and wipes and baby formula. Maybe they need a car seat, a high chair, all the things that babies need, and you know the expense of that. So it's wonderful here. Probably once every 2 weeks or more frequently, we get somebody, I'm here, I've got some stuff, and they unload all kinds of diapers and all kinds of baby things. And those go out almost as fast as they come in. And that's, multiply that across the country, those kinds of needs. A maternity home, especially in their startup phase, they're needing furniture and all the baby furniture and toys and things for the women to live. They can use food supplies. It's helping people live rather than.
And that reminds me, Pam, there's a number of maternity homes that when a woman lives there, for whatever the duration is that organization has set up, when it comes time for that woman to leave, she's graduated their program, many of them will let them keep everything in the home. So if they had a room and they had furniture, they had a kitchen and they had dishes and silverware, they get to keep all of that and take it with them, so that they're not saying, okay, well, you graduated our program, now you're out and you're off with nothing again. So go, swim upstream. They're doing that. And so that means that that's a recurring need that they have, to be able to restock and resupply their homes to be able to provide for future women, which is a great point. And there's so many ways.
And this is the beauty of this and the stark contrast. If you haven't seen the movie Unplanned, you got to see it. I just was at a conference this weekend with Abby Johnson, and I think it was her that was again reminding us of the not loving care that happens in an abortion facility. This is an industry. This is a money-making effort. Time is money. And she talked again about, she had a panel kind of like us, but these were former abortion workers. And they talked about 15 minutes. You get 15 minutes after your procedure is done. You get 15 minutes in the recovery room. And then, okay, it's time to go. Here's a cookie. Here's some juice. Bye-bye. And they're put out back to their lives. No counseling, no help. Often, we see that as they come out, and we see the tears on the cheeks as they're driving away. And so contrast that sort of cold, sterile, come on, time to go, next one, move them in and out. They were talking about how they didn't change the sheets after one girl came and another one left. It was all about almost like a factory, get them. And then when you look at what's going on from the sidewalk and beyond, all the loving, patient, generous, gracious care, it is enormous and it's beautiful. And if you're looking for ways to tap in, there are many ways to tap in and be part of that and support that.
I love the fact that we've talked about, the fact that sidewalk counselors are that first face, right? That first face that's trying to connect them with opportunities for life. And you're absolutely right. We have all these pregnancy care centers, the pro-life group, women and men and families and churches want to support the women and men, families that are experiencing unplanned or unexpected pregnancies and to meet their needs. I think, particularly as we serve youth, as this podcast is speaking to youth, what are some of the things that a school can do to uphold the lives of someone who becomes pregnant? Because that happens too, whether it's in a high school or on a college campus. And so I know there's been some really wonderful work that has been happening at some of our Concordias to kind of uplift and uphold those lives. And Bonnie, I'm going to put you on the spot because I know CUW has done some wonderful things in particular as part of our Concordia community. I don't know if you'd be willing to share some of the things that schools can do to uphold the lives of students who become pregnant.
Yeah. So when I was let's see, a few years back, I'm not exactly sure when, but I worked with another leader to kind of put together a Pregnant on Campus initiative. Basically, it was a big, like, 80-page resource guide for students that we wanted the housing and the campus counselors and the campus pastor and the RAs to all have access or have a copy of that, so that if they did, those are all people that might find out, be connected to a student who finds out that they're pregnant. And just so in that document, and I think that was Students for Life of America, I believe, was the one who kind of spearheaded this, like, let's push making campuses more welcoming to pregnant women. And so we kind of adopted their model and made it for our campus. So that was a huge effort that ended up, we had this big document. It had things like where to go for insurance, how do you get insurance, when you're looking at having a new child with you, you're gonna have to figure all those kinds of things that as you kind of were still in your parents' house, maybe you don't really know about or haven't thought about, but all of a sudden, like, you kind of need to figure this thing out. Where you can go to get medical care. So we specifically looked at finding who pro-life OBGYNs are, so that when you go for your appointment, abortion is not something that they're suggesting to you because of your sort of volatile time of life. So pregnancy resource centers we put in there, all these resources were local to our campus. And then also educating them on their rights as a student and as a person, so that, for example, they can't be kicked out of their housing while they're pregnant. That's not a valid reason, and making sure that they know that they can't be, like, discriminated against for that. Other things, I mean, it kind of depends on the angle. As a fellow student or a friend, definitely being there for your friend or for that student. Maybe that means you need to reach out to someone that you don't know that well, but you see that they're expecting, and just offering yourself as a listening ear, asking what they need, because it's a hard thing. I mean, I was pregnant, obviously not unplanned, and I was married. It was a very stable situation for me, but even that, like, just the physical of being pregnant while a student is really, like, it's tough. And so to add on top of that, if it was unexpected, if you didn't have, like, the father wasn't really in the picture or willing to pitch in, you want the woman to be able to finish her education if she can. And so reaching out to her, offering to drive to doctor's appointments. Another thing that we started, and again, I've been out of school and not involved in the club for a couple of years, so I don't know if this is still running, but we started something called Supporters of Pregnant Students, which was sort of like a buddy system that ran through the counseling center on campus. So if a counselor knew that, if somebody came to them and they were expecting, they had a list of students that had volunteered to do a variety of things. So you could volunteer to drive to doctor's appointments, or to eat lunch with them, or to hang out with them. Like, you could volunteer for as many or as little as few of those things as you wanted, but just so that they had someone who was life affirming that could be there in whatever capacity they needed. Other things, just like throwing baby showers, diaper drives, all those kinds of things. Bringing even like your pro-life club could come together to support some of those physical needs for the mom who's expecting a baby.
Yeah. After the baby, I mean, if they're still in school, they're going to need help with childcare. Right. Offering to babysit so they can go to the library and work on their thing. Or now they're a single mom, maybe, and they got to make money, because then they got two people in their family to take care of. So that's another way churches, individuals can help. And
Pam, I would even argue that for a student, or really in any case, if a school wanted to do something to support pregnant women, that providing childcare would be the number one way to do it. I think that is the biggest hurdle. All the other things are absolutely hurdles, but they're easier to overcome. That, finding housing is crucial, but she needs housing whether she's pregnant and has a child or not. That has to happen. The one thing that is really just added on top of everything else that is only and solely specifically for the child is childcare. And it's astronomically expensive in our country.
Mhm.
For a woman to have childcare, I mean, in the cheapest of situations, generally it's about $500 a month, but that can range all the way up to $1,500 a month for a single child. And if she's working a minimum wage job, depending on where she lives in the country, then 80 to 100% of her paycheck is going to pay for childcare. Well, how much sense does that make? And if she's wanting to continue her education so that she can actually be propelled into a career where she can make money to support her family, she needs to be able to get to school. She needs to go to class. She needs to go to the library, do her homework. So I've seen a number of high schools that have on-campus daycares, on-campus nurseries. And I think colleges would do well to add that as well. If there are churches that surround a college campus or a high school campus, that's something that they could do. Many of our Lutheran churches already have daycares and childcare centers. If they had a scholarship program for our low-income mothers, or those who are unexpectedly pregnant, that they could provide that for that. I just can't even overstate how huge that would be, because there are DHS subsidies and there are government assistances that these moms can get for their childcare as well, but they are hard to come by. And depending on where you live, any facility that accepts them is almost entirely at capacity all the time. So you're on a wait list, and it's such a demoralizing thing to so many of these women that it furthers the idea that their dreams and their future is crushed because they have a child, that they can't actually accomplish anything that they wanted to with their life because they can't go to school, they can't get a job, they can't do all of these things. They're never going to meet someone. How are they going to get married? All of these things. A lot of just kind of boil down to childcare. And of course, that's an oversimplification because there are tons of obstacles, but that one is such a huge one that if schools and churches have the ability to meet that need, it would be so huge.
Especially in a Christian setting, right? So I went to a public high school, and we did, by the time I graduated, have a daycare on site because the pregnancy rate was so high at my high school, and that's a couple decades ago, and so what a wonderful gift for the church to be able to provide that, and not just the care for the children, but also for the babies, but also the spiritual care, right? For the mother, to be able to step into that and fill that need. One of the things that I have in traveling to the different Concordias, so I work with teams at each of our Concordias. And one of the things I've noticed is some of those Concordias are now providing also lactation rooms for moms, which again, I think is such a wonderful way to uphold her life as she's also trying to uphold the life of the child that God has given her. And so, I would encourage young people to be thinking about, what ways can we uphold the lives of women who experience that unplanned pregnancy or unexpected pregnancy, and what might we approach our administration with? Right? Are there some things that we can encourage administration to change? I remember when I was in college, I had a roommate who had an unexpected pregnancy my freshman year, and just I would have really appreciated the content that Bonnie's school had put together, right, so that I could help even know where to direct her. Right? It was. And then, our floor, what could we do? Those sorts of things. And we figured it out, but it still was, life-changing for her, but also for all the people who care for her, right? Morning sickness, this different smells, there's just a lot of things that you don't know about until you've been pregnant or until you've lived with someone who's been pregnant. So, What about most memorable sidewalk counseling experience?
I think back to one woman who I counseled on the sidewalk, and this was 5 or 6 years ago. So it's been quite a while, but she's stuck with me. And we were done for the day. We were packing up. The abortion facility was getting ready to close, and this car pulled up, and and it's at the end of the day. I was in the summer. There's always that temptation to just be like, whatever, they're closed anyway. This woman's not going to be able to get inside, just kind of let it go. But I didn't, I'm like, okay, we're going to talk to her anyway. And so I went up and I stopped and I talked with her, and just the circumstances that she was in were just so incredibly hard. And just listening to her there in the driveway, and because the facility was closed, we didn't have people pushing us in or pushing us out because there was traffic flow. We were just able to stand there in the driveway, and I talked with her through her car window for a long time and just chatted about her circumstances and what was going on. And she'd recently learned some really, really troubling things about her partner, and he was abusive already, but then there were just other things that she had learned on top of it that made her just feel like she couldn't stay with this man another minute. And in that way too, she was afraid of where she was even going to go when she left that parking lot. She's like, I can't go home. And he was so abusive that he kept strict tabs on her. And, she wanted to stay in contact with me, but she didn't want him to know that she was talking with me. And so even standing in the driveway there at this time, we devised this whole plan. She gave me her number. I gave her my number. She put me in her phone under a different name with a fake organization. And she had this cover story that she wanted me to use, that if I were to reach out to her, I was supposed to say, I'm such and such person from church, talking about this Bible study group, or something like that, to where the partner wouldn't know who I was if he were to find her phone, but that she would know who I was and she could call me back and we could talk. Well, anyway, I got her set up with a domestic violence house where she was able to go, and they have the very strict protection. They were able to kind of black her out from him, and he had no idea where he was. But I was working in the pregnancy center at that time, so I also had the added opportunity to actually get to continue working with her throughout her pregnancy too. So that was really powerful. And come to find out, after we worked with her a little while longer, she was actually carrying twins. And so that turnaround was, doubled in its impact, that we were able to help her save her child, because she was convinced at that moment she had to have an abortion, that she couldn't bring that man's child into the world, and it would just be terrible. But, we worked through that, and she was able to continue her pregnancy. She was able to get separated from him and find a safe place to be. And of course, it wasn't just one life spared, but two. And so that one really sticks with me.
Yeah.
If I could ask, I was wondering about this earlier as well, but do people seem surprised or untrusting almost of the offering of free services? Even when I'm approached by someone on the street, I'm like, oh, what's the catch, right? Why are you giving me something free? Do you feel like, I felt like that story, was she kind of suspicious of what you had to offer and it being free, and just seeming to have no catch? Or if she wasn't, is that a common thing that you encounter?
Sometimes it's not so much suspicious as it is disbelief. They're kind of dumbfounded. And I think that's something that we experience too, when we really take a good look at the grace we get from God and we think, this can't be true. This is too good. And not that anything that we offer on the sidewalk compares at all with the salvation we receive freely from Christ, but it's a little glimpse into that. The idea that, why would this person show me such grace and give me something free and so undeserved, that here I am ready to kill my baby, and instead they're willing to pay my bills for me, help me find a job, work with me, and all of that without ulterior motive, but actually a genuine love. That's just crazy. Doesn't make sense, but that's why it's so important to be there, to be that powerful witness. The thing that I hear most often on the sidewalk or even in the pregnancy center is people who are so surprised after talking with us, because when they call the abortion facility and they schedule their appointment, they are coached by the abortion facility. The abortion facility says, when you get here, there are going to be a bunch of protesters outside. They're going to yell at you and they're going to be really mean. Just don't even stop. Don't listen to them. They're hateful. You don't want to talk to them. They're going to lie to you, all this stuff. And they tell them just to drive on through. Well, a lot of times we get those people and they stop anyway, because they see us and they think, okay, well, this doesn't match what I was told on the phone. They're not yelling at me. They don't look mean. They don't look angry. They're smiling. They're waving. They seem pleasant. And they stop and talk to us and they engage with us. We give them the resources. We tell them what we have to offer and how we can help them. And more times than I can count, I have been told, I almost didn't stop for you because I thought you were a protester, but you're not a protester. You're just out here to help people. And that's what they tell me. And I'm like, yep, I am just out here to help people. that, you know, this idea that protesting means you have to hate somebody, or protesting means that you're not actually trying to make a change. You just want to be loud and noisy and obscene, but that's not what we are. We protest the death and destruction of abortion, but the way to do that is with love. It's countering it. It's showing the opposite. Instead of dismissing concerns and killing a life, we embrace those concerns and we work for a solution, and we celebrate the life and we uphold the life of both the mother and the child. And so that would be something that we hear all the time, is that they're surprised because they did not expect us to be kind. They didn't expect us to be loving. And they thought we were protesters, and what their mindset of pro-life protesters was not at all what they experienced when they talked to us. And that's the goal.
All right. What can we do to support counselors then? What can we do? We've kind of talked about what we can do to support women and families in our churches, in our homes, in our schools, through pregnancy resource centers, through work to change maybe rules, through our administration, through donations. What can we do to support the counselors?
I want to speak to that because this has been the eye-opening thing to me in my time getting to know our counselors. At Coalition Life, we actually pay people that this is their main work for us, and 16 hours a week they are on the sidewalk, and we train them. It's extensive training, retraining, evaluating, helping them be better at what they do. And so when I've gone out to the sidewalk, it's usually because they're short a person and I'm assisting. And I've used those times to talk to these counselors and just ask them, you know, because I'm seeing there's an emotional, not drain, but there's a tension on the sidewalk. You know, you realize you know what this person's driving in for. And this is the last conversation they're going to have with anyone who's going to try to talk them out of it. Likely, once they pass in, it's all, let's go, let's get that abortion and take care of this problem. And so there's a real, I think, burden on a sidewalk counselor that they carry this responsibility, they have this opportunity, and those conversations can be really hard. And they can talk to a person for quite a while and think they're getting somewhere. And then the person, yeah, I just got to go in there. And then they have the abortion, and the emotional sort of toll that happens, that, oh, I didn't get them to turn around, you know, and how many cars go past and how many come out, or you get them to turn around, and at the one place where we are, we can see them go over to this mobile unit that's a partner of ours. And if they don't stay there, or they say they're going to go over there and then they don't go over there, I mean, there's just so many ways that I think for the counselors, there's an emotional tax on them. And so the way to support them is to, I think, let them talk about it. Encourage them, pray with them, pray for them, surround them with prayer. We begin every 4-hour shift with prayer and end it with prayer on the sidewalk. And they light up when those prayer teams come out and show up. They don't know when they're coming. Maybe sometimes they know because there's a few groups that are consistent every Tuesday morning or whatever, but that is a cause for encouragement to see that visibly, but also to hear about it and to know it. And here's the thing I didn't know, but if you go by a place where you have sidewalk counselors and you think, I'm gonna get them a Coke and I'm gonna just drive by and hand it to them, or give them a sandwich from McDonald's because I'm sure they're hungry, they will thank you and they'll be very gracious, but they will not be allowed to eat it or drink it, because we know there are nefarious people out there who might do the same thing, that might try to harm them, that we don't want them eating or drinking on the sidewalk. Rachel can speak more to why that is, but you could give them a gift card, or you could make a way for them to go get a cold drink after a shift, or, help them with, I was just researching cooling towels that they can put on their necks in the hot summer, or gloves and scarves and things in the winter, because, when we're all inside snuggling, they're standing out in the cold or the heat, or so there's physical ways to support them. But I think the biggest is the prayer. And if you know a sidewalk counselor, just letting them talk, and being okay with sometimes the heaviness of what they're carrying and what they've experienced. Yeah, I don't know, Rachel, you probably have other thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic, Pam. The only thing I would add to that is, if you don't know a counselor personally, or you don't feel like you have the time to stop and go and pray, but you drive past an abortion facility where there are prayer volunteers or sidewalk counselors out there, if you can spare just the minute to pull over and thank them, because our sidewalk counselors are the recipients of a lot of hate. Yeah. Any facility staff, and even a good amount of the patients who come in, or even passerbys on the street, they get yelled at, they get screamed at. We've had counselors have food thrown at them. I mean, you see it in cartoons where people get tomatoes thrown at them, but we've literally had people throw their food at our counselors, or spit on them, or,
shove them.
All sorts of just hate. And that adds to the emotional trauma that Pam was talking about that they carry for the clients, but they get that also. And so any bit of positive encouragement is huge. So if all you can do is honk, wave, and give a thumbs up, do it. But if you can pull over and say, hey, I just really want to thank you for being out here. I know your job is hard, but it is so important. And thank you. Like, that's it. That's all it takes to make their day, and help to erase some of those negative interactions that they had earlier. And that allows them to come out there more. It reduces the burnout rate, because it is a taxing job, physically, spiritually, emotionally. Just encourage them. Find out what organization they're connected with and see how you can support that. If you want to come out and volunteer and come out and pray, or like Pam was saying, sometimes the edible things, don't just show up on the sidewalk and give them something edible because they don't know. But if you're a supporter of that organization, call up the organization, talk to somebody in the office, call me and say, hey, I want to supply something for your team on the sidewalk today, and go through that channel so it can be, vetted, and we can let them know that, hey, if this person shows by with this item, we know that's safe for you to have. But I would just say get involved and show your appreciation, and see how you can join the fight too, because whether you're comfortable sidewalk counseling or not, prayer is something we can all do. And whether we do that on site in conjunction with our sidewalk counselors or from afar, any amount of prayer is always good.
Yeah. And I think when those of us who aren't on these front lines like this, we're surrounded with people who love us. I my whole life, I've never worked at a place where I've heard foul language. I've never worked at a place where people have flipped me off, or, it's always been sort of emotionally safe and loving, and my people, right? And that's not that way for everybody in the work world, but it certainly isn't that way on the sidewalk. I mean, maybe, how many times a day are they flipped off, sworn at, yelled at by passersby, by the people going through. And, I remember Dr. John Kleinig he's a Lutheran theologian in South Australia.
Right.
And he talks about, when we go to confess our sins and we're absolved of them, we're also cleansed of the sin that assails us from out there, that sullies us, that burdens us, that makes us feel unclean. And I think after a day of being flipped off and sworn at, and knowing that your words didn't take, and a life was lost, or whatever those things are, you're dirtied. You feel it. That sin it sticks to you. And so if you have a friend in this, encourage them to talk to their pastor. Encourage them that Christ's mercy and his forgiveness and his cleansing covers them and this work that they do and the dirtiness that comes onto them. I've talked to each one of our counselors that I've worked with, and what do you do? How do you, you go home after a day like this? What is that? And they, some have spiritual confidants, others, they have different ways of relieving the stress, but there's no true relieving without laying it at the foot of the cross and trusting Christ to take it all and to know that you haven't failed if you didn't turn a single person around, because there are many days like that. Nobody turned around today, and we were out there. And that is its own toll. What am I doing here? Right. So,
and that message that, both of you have shared, the idea, the battle is won, right? Christ won the fight. Christ won the battle, and we get to be the messengers. And that doesn't mean that it's not hard to share that message. And it doesn't mean that sin is not still active in the world, and sometimes in very aggressive and heavy ways, right? So to remind sidewalk counselors that they are cared for, they are prayed for, that Christ stands in them and beside them and works through them, whether someone stops at an abortion facility and goes in or turns around. We know that the Holy Spirit is at work, right? And the seed has been planted, and it may be that comes to fruition after the child is lost, right? And the woman needs the healing of Christ. And so if we can help carry that burden, carry that cross, then we want to do that. Thank you so much for joining us, for joining me today on Table Talks for Life. It was a pleasure to have you guys here to talk about sidewalk counseling. For those of you listening, please like our podcast, share it with others. And if you want to reach out for more information on training, who should they contact?
They can call Coalition Life. Our phone number is 314-827-4039. You can find us online at coalitionlife.com. We would be happy to train any group or any individual. If you wanted to join at one of our sites and sidewalk counsel alongside us, or if you're wanting to start your own sidewalk counseling ministry at an abortion facility near you, we would be happy to help you get started and teach you some of the tools that you need to really be a thriving and successful sidewalk counseling ministry.
Wonderful. Thanks again, ladies. And for those listening, blessings on your day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining the Y4Life team for today's Table Talk for Life. We hope you're better equipped to address today's life issues and uphold the people God has placed in your path. Be sure to check out our programs and resources at y4life.org or email Michelle at y4life.org to find out more about how you can be a gospel-motivated voice for life. And we hope you'll join us next time, right here at Youth for Life Podcasts.